I'm a little late. Yes, just having the usual round of Gail cannot handle technology. So, I'm hoping some of you can see this because it is an experiment. For those of you tuning in later or on YouTube, I am attempting to do a live inside my Facebook group because last month's live went so bad. But it looks like some people are watching, so it's happening. Yay! Hello, Robin, I can see you. Yay! Robin, I can see your comments, which is so exciting. Can you also hear me? That is, hello, Kismet, hello. Can you, hi, there, the people are commenting. So this is a great relief, since last month there were no comments. So, but it looks like it's working this time around. So I am going to very quickly, speak. And I'm going to try to, yes, this is the right group. That is the discussion. Ah, there it is. There's the live. I am going to try sharing it. Cool. That worked. And I'm going to try sharing it to my page. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, well, that's interesting. Am I ready for cheese shenanigans? Who is not ready for cheese shenanigans? Is there cheese? Cheese Shenanigans is the name of my my polka cover band. Anyway, so it looks like things are working. It looks like I can see your comments, and that is great. Tell me where you're tuning in from, and we'll see how this goes as an in-group thing rather than an on-the-page thing. Oh, Robin is telling me that Madame Askew and the Temporal Entourage, who are, I guess, a Gail Carriger sister group, is having cheese shenanigans this evening, which, no, I did not hear about, but I should definitely participate in. Anyway, hello, welcome to my channel. Let me show you my teacup. Here is today's teacup. I might have shown you this one before. It's so delightfully garish that I'm madly in love with it, but basically, I had it today because it sort of goes with my little summery dress, which I'm wearing for no good reason, except I haven't had a reason to wear a dress in a very long time. So I decided to wear a dress today. And it has a cute top piece. So yes, now that you've seen my cup, I'm going to give myself some tea. I am drinking chai today, which I tend to be drinking in the afternoons these days. I don't know why, I just like, if I'm gonna just appreciate tea without anything to eat with it, then I kind of like a chai because it's so much more complex, Also, someone is obsessed with texting me at the moment. Normally, I am of the age where no one texts me. But apparently, the moment I jump on a live video broadcast, somebody needs to text me desperately. So, there are 17 of you watching, which tells me, since normally there's about 30 to 40 people watching, that the group is not as well-reaching as the page is, but that's okay. We're experimenting today. But I am going to try, well, I can try one more time to share this. Can I share this somewhere else? Share to a newsfeed? Oh, well, that's not good. Hold on a second. There might be a reason why I can't share this to my page. Thank you for your patience with me and my complete inability to run any kind of technology. It is much appreciated. Hold on, and we will talk about books in a moment, but this is kind of a lesson in a book person being a dumbass. Excuse my French. We're in the group. I can be a little more crass. All right, let me try sharing this to a page. Look, I have the option. Okay. I'm sharing it. Great. Cool. So I thought I would talk a little bit. I dropped a mini video on Instagram and a couple of other places recently where I talked about what signing tip-ins looked like, or signing pages. And I thought I would go back and talk a little bit about just signing books and kind of that experience. So most of you who've had experience with an author signing or with me, and if you have had an experience with coming to one of my like book events or signings in person, you can leave a comment and tell me about it. But most of you who've had this experience, it's just, you just go to a bookstore or a convention and you stand in line with a book that you have brought with you or have purchased, and then the author signs it, or several books or what have you. So that's what most people's experience is with signings. But sometimes authors will do special editions that come signed to the readers, and some of you have experienced this and know it from me, and some of you have experienced this by surprise. You found a signed book in a bookstore. Many of you who bought this edition of Soulless did not realize that I signed the first print run of this book. So all of them, we'll talk about that in a second. But my first experience with signing for distribution was this book, which is Waistcoats and Weaponry. Now, I was struggling to remember what year it was. Somebody who's watching this now will probably remember what year it was. But basically what happened was my publisher came to me and said, Barnes & Noble is really interested in selling special early signed editions. So like a pre-order for a signed edition of this, which was the third book in the series, in hardcover. And they want to pre-order, I think, 700 of them, something like that. And we're willing to make this happen if you're willing to sign them. Now, this is a little abnormal because it came for publishing late in the game. And so what they ended up doing is what most people imagine signing books is like, which is they ended up shipping 700 copies of this book, the whole book. Now, I don't have an office, and I don't have a big enough office, I should say, and I don't live in an apartment that's very big, so I literally could not hold 700 books. Also, at the time, both my office and my apartment were 2 stories up, stairs, no elevators or lifts or anything. So I was like, well, you can ship them to me to sign, but you need to do it somewhere where they can take 700 books, and that's not my house. So they ended up actually having to rent a like conference room at a local motel hotel thing for me, and they then hired a local, what's called a media assistant, which is just a person that handles often bands and like celebrities and stuff when they come to an area, to come help me. And basically that person's responsibility was to open these books for me, all 700 of them, to this page, which is the page that I like to sign on. So yes, and it took me several afternoons. I think it took me like at least 3 or 4 days of afternoons of a week to do those 700 books, and it was pretty tiring. And then they were going to then ship all of those books to the warehouse, and then the warehouse is going to send them all out to the various different Barnes & Noble stores. Or I think it was pre-ordered online or something for this Barnes & Noble deal. And what happened was, nobody knows what happened next. We shipped them back to the address that had been put on the box to return them, and they disappeared into the ether. When the book actually released, about a month later, Barnes & Noble sent out a notification to everybody who had pre-ordered the signed edition, canceling their pre-order with no explanation. And so far as I knew, those 700 signed copies of this book were never found. So if you ever got a signed copy of this book in a Barnes & Noble bookstore, that is because somehow those ones that were supposed to be sent out to online orderers didn't get sent out. I was understandably bitter because I had, told you all about this, and so when they got canceled, everybody emailed me and was like, or talked to me on social media and was like, "What? I ordered this book." It also meant that we lost those 700 sales, which are Nielsen reporting sales, and so this is my first book that didn't make the New York Times list, partly because of that. There's other reasons as well, but so I was pretty upset about it. I was on tour for this book. I was at World Fantasy Awards when this happened, and there might have been tears. I might have been drunk, but there might have been tears. Some of you might have seen me the next day. I was at the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C., There might have been some red eyes, because yes, I was pretty upset about it. I've never quite forgiven Barnes & Noble for it. But then with prudence, they decided to try and make me do it again. I think I signed 500 that time, and I think those ones actually made it out. But I was, this made me very bitter about signing for distribution. So that is the tragic story of Gail and the signing. That was, 8 years ago now, so I'm over it. Some of you might not be, but I am. A brief description of hardcover terminology, because I will throw these terms out there. This is a hardcover. This is a dust jacket or a book jacket, which is this piece of paper that goes over the hardcover. This piece of paper that's blank, that is actually attached to the one that is glued on the inside of, this is called a fly leaf. I hate signing on the fly leaf because of the way it's attached. You can perforate the fly leaf really easily, and I press pretty hard when I sign, so I don't sign on the fly leaves. And you'll see how this next page is also kind of attached to the fly leaf. That's the title page. I also don't sign on the title page. Now, a lot of authors do. The title page is the first actual page of a book usually, and it also has nothing on the back, which is why a lot of authors will sign on this page, because then if it bleeds through, it doesn't matter. I actually sign on this page, which is sometimes called the author page, and that's because it's the first page that's like flush, that's easy for me to sign on. So generally speaking, when I'm signing books, I'm signing on this page, which is the first kind of actual page of a book. And it has the copyright information on the back. So there it is. That's the sort of signing thing and how I like to sign personally. So that is the way it happens when you have to sign a bunch of books, but it's a little last minute for the publishing industry. Now, last minute for the publishing industry is a lot slower than in a lot of other industries, because everything moves very slowly in traditional publishing. Generally speaking, when a book is going to be on sale for distribution signed, that actually happens with something called signing pages or tipped-ins. So tipped-ins are single pages that are sent to the author. And so it's going to be just more like one box. It's a lot easier to handle. It's like one box with 1,000 pages in it or what have you. Most of the time, the author knows ahead of time exactly how many signing pages will be done, and that's because it's usually for the whole print run, if it's a special edition, or it is for the first print run in some cases. So, for example, this book was the illustrated special edition of Soulless. It is a case-wrapped hardback. That means it doesn't have a dust jacket. The image is printed directly on the card. So there it is. This is a fancy flyleaf. Ooh, fancy flyleaf. So in this instance, it's this next page that is signed in these books, and that's because they just sent me a box of blank pages that I signed. Now this is another kind of, I guess, amusing story, which is partly your fault, which is Orbit, who is my traditional publisher, decided that they were going to do this special illustrated edition, and they asked me if I would sign the first print run, and I said, how many books are going to be in the first print run? And they said, oh, we think about 500. And I was like, well, that's easy for me to sign, because it was supposed to be a special, like, limited edition. And then they announced this book, and they had, like 7,000 pre-orders from you. Thank you all very, very much, but they were not expecting that. And so they turned around to me and said, well, how about 5,000 that you'll be signing? And I was like, that's a lot more than you said originally. And through the course of very many back and forths, that 5,000 became 10,000 fly leaves that I was going to have to sign. So for this print run, the first print run was 10,000 books, and I think that is all they did. I think there are only 10,000 of these in existence. And I signed every single one of them. Now, I probably signed more like 10,200 because they make you sign extra in case anything goes wrong. That took me a month to do most afternoons while still, saving my hands and everything. That was a long commitment, signing 10,000 books, let me tell you. I'm not complaining, but I learned a lot about how many I can sign in an hour, how I need to space that out, what kind of things I need to bandage and wear when I'm going to be signing that many books at once. So yes. So that was this signing experience. Now, these guys, which are the Subterranean editions, so they are already numbered limited editions. And so when I sign for them, Subterranean sends me this. So this is what a tipped-in page actually looks like. As you can see, it just looks like a normal piece of high-quality paper. It's like a thicker, it's not card, but it's thicker. And then I sign here, and then I send it back, and then they number it here. So they'll number it because there'll be, say, 700 numbered and like 70 limited. Those are lettered. So they'll be numbered and lettered editions. And in the end, it will end up looking like this here. So so I send the sheets back, and the sheets just get stuck into the books. So there it is. That's how they work. I thought you guys would be interested in knowing how a signed edition, wrist braces for life, says Charity, and I do in fact wear wrist braces. But that's how these signed editions happen. Generally speaking, now I'm at the place where I'm told if a special edition, I'm working with Subterranean to create special editions, and so we kind of know ahead of time exactly how many are going to be printed, so I know how many I'm going to be signing. They send me those, they're also called signature pages or signing pages or tipped-ins. They will send those to me quite early before a book comes out, and so I have plenty of time to sign them. So it's all worked out, but the sagas of signed editions, they happen in many different ways, quite frankly. And that's kind of all I had to get us started. If I am prepared to take some questions. If you guys have questions, you can ask me questions about hardcovers or the book industry or anything else. I am at your disposal. There's only 25 people watching, so I don't know how many questions we will get. Generally speaking, I need to get more watchers to get more questions. So Lavender is asking, can I explain how a publisher like Subterranean does editions of previously published books? Yes, I can, because this is a Subterranean edition of a previously published book, which some of you might have read, this one. So in this particular instance, now it's different for different authors and it depends on your contract, but most traditionally published authors are going to be probably like this, which is I sold the print rights for Soulless to my publisher, Orbit, and that means that they have the right to print this, which is a trade paperback edition, but they also have the right to do a mass market edition, which is the original first edition of Soulless. I don't have a copy of close by. And they also had the right to do a hardcover edition, which they eventually did as this. But prior to this one coming out, I don't think they had any intention of doing hardcover with me, but they still have the rights. So my agent kind of brokered the deal, but Subterranean approached me because I know them. I have, I have friends who are authors who also worked with them. They know my kind of steampunk Victorian brand and style, and I think they knew they could do a sort of stylistic kind of hardcover that would be very unique to them and very sort of specialist. And so they approached my agent, or my agent approached them. I don't know who opened it initially, and they said, we would like to do a hardcover of Gail's first book. And Kristen, my agent, had to be like, well, we don't have hardcover rights. Gail's traditional publisher has the hardcover rights. So Subterranean then has to negotiate with my publisher. And they then and pay the publisher for reprint rights. So they would pay them usually a flat fee of a certain amount of money to reprint this book. And that is what they did. And then my publisher can choose whether to accept that deal or not. Now, if they don't have any intention of doing hardcover, they'll probably accept the deal, which is what they did. And then this was wildly successful. And this is the one, I think there's only about 700 in existence. And so because this was successful and sold out so quickly, I think that's when they paid attention and they were like, oh, maybe we should do a special edition of Gail's book. And they did the illustrated edition, which is how this one came into existence. So that's how it happened. And then after that, Subterranean and I, we now have a relationship as a publisher and an author, and that's when we started to talk about doing this, which is a bundle of previous novellas with a short story as a kind of omnibus. And because all of these are indie published originally, that has nothing to do with my traditional publisher, so I didn't have to involve them in the negotiation. But my agent was involved because Subterranean is a traditional printing house, so we have a contract and all that sort of thing. So that's how they happen. Yes, so that is how the rights are sold now. In some cases, authors only have print rights with the traditional publisher for paperback editions, in which case the traditional publisher does not have to be involved in a reprint right. Generally speaking, a super specialist house like Subterranean is only really interested in books that can be made into kind of luxury items, that have a big enough fan base to support that, but also work with their specific taste, I guess. So Subterranean has a very specific kind of point of view as a publisher. So they specialize in, certain authors in a certain style, catering to a specific market, which is the science fiction and fantasy community. So that also makes a difference when you're dealing with what I would call a luxury publisher, or sort of a higher end publisher that specializes in really fancy hardcovers. So the book itself also has to work for them. I'm struggling with, oh God, sorry. Oh, okay. Album where I'm working with a piece of equipment that is plugged in so that it stays charged. That means the screen is very changing. Okay, Robin is asking me a question. If I can read it, oh, there it is. Okay. Robin is asking when I finish Agatha's book, which is the next book to come out in October of this year. Do I have plans for more Delightfully Deadly books? Not immediately. I have no, but I am absolutely not cutting the line off. I suppose some of them are novel length, but I will definitely keep it open to do more. But I don't have an idea for another book in that series right now. I've talked before about the fact that I tend to want to have a sort of epiphany with a book where I see two characters talking. And I haven't had that yet with any of the other finishing school characters, but I'd like to do Felix. I think Felix should have a book at some point if I ever feel like writing a sort of anti-hero redemption kind of thing. There are definitely there are definitely other characters from the finishing school books who could have a side book. I just don't have any immediate plans for them. But that I never rule anything out. It's always possible. Me, I'm sorry. I will probably try something different in the future. I'm going to I'll be right back. Hold on just a second. Honestly, if I do this, I would do it, and I'm definitely looking into something like okay, it is not important. my college girlfriends and my high school girlfriends having a big old gossip session via text messaging. That's what's going on. Yes, I think it is probably me. I live near the heart of Silicon Valley, which means the internet is really, really bad here. You would think it would be the opposite, but nope. Notoriously terrible internet in the state of California. That's life. Other questions? Bad connection. I'm so sorry. It could be the fact that I'm using my iPad instead of my phone. My phone tends to boost more, but my phone is really old, so it's been having a lot of problems recently. So I don't. And this new update that Facebook has done is just causing a ton of problems to video, which I think is very weird. Robin has another question for me. Alessandro Terabati. So I've talked about Alessandro and that I would like to write more of him, partly because he's set in like the 18, sort of the Regency era, and late Regency, early Victorian, and that's just a time period I'd like to write in. And I think it would be fun to write kind of a series of his life and exploits. I have quite a few of his journal entries written because I wrote a bunch of them for and never did using them in that series. So I have some journal entries and stuff. I think it would be fun to do a episodic series of short stories, kind of like P.G. Wodehouse-esque, where it's like in the life of kind of chronicles and adventures. The problem with Alessandro is he has a bitter end. I'm not sure about writing a character that doesn't GA for you guys' emotional well-being and my own. And he's also kind of not a nice person. So there's that to consider. Stein is asking if I have any plans for books that have nothing to do with the Paris. Yes. I'm writing now. So there are two, well, three possible. There's a bunch in the works right now. So, which I'm just going to say and not spell for you, because that is either the title or the series, I don't know, is a techno fantasy that I just vote in the Chirrup, and I'll let you all know what the results are in the next Chirrup. So, but that is the techno fantasy, so it's a far future sci-fi, and it is loosely baby connected to the Tinkered Stars universe. It exists within that universe, but also not, for reasons that are so that is not non-Parasolverse, and that is written. So that one will probably happen. For various convoluted reasons, I'm going to have to do a review of Crudrat, at which point I might as well revise it. So I will probably bring that one out in digital and print, and it's only ever existed in audio. That's my full cast audiobook. So those two both have what I would call happy for now endings, which means they both indicate that there could be another book. But they end in a satisfactory manner. So I could write second books for both of those as well. But they are both completely written, so I might bring them out regardless. Anyway, that's and then what I'm currently writing is a 3 series that is also sci-fi. So it's Tinkered Stars. It is completely Tinkered Stars. It has to do with Crudrat specifically. A little bit of, but there's quite in there, but they're not in a series together. They share aliens, shall we say, and a little bit of a background. The two main characters share a background between Crudrat and the alien one I'm writing right now. It is basically aliens have a technology that they're using in the culture wars to take over the known galaxy. And a barista on a moon who's recruited to be part of the entertainment industry. And yeah, so that's what I'm writing right now, and my current intention is to write all three of those books back to back. It's been a long time since I've done a series, and I kind of want to do a series again. Also, I had the story arc and the outline kind of sprang to my brain as three books fully formed, which doesn't happen to me. I like writing an outline and I like a guideline, so when it just sort of happens like that, I was like, oh, I really like sci-fi to explore concepts. And, and so this is kind of exploring the nature of culture and celebrity and culture conflict and fandom and obsession and also religious movements and cults. So it has a whole kind of the archaeologist, anthropologist brain to really noodle on and experiment with. And I think that's what's most fun about sci-fi, when you get to explore the kind of future worlds like that and future possibilities. And for me, my favorite science fiction has always been social science fiction. Like, I'm not as wild about hard sci-fi. It's fun to see hard sci-fi, but I'm really interested in the way like kind of culture and alien and notions of selfhood and stuff might exist in a far future world. So that's kind of what I'm interested in exploring. So yes, that's what I'm currently working on. And I don't know how long it'll take me to write, but I have the rough draft of the first book completed. I finished it yesterday, so go me. And I accidentally wrote the first chapter of the second book because I thought it was the last chapter of the first book, and it turned out that it wasn't. It was the first chapter of the next book. But that's how series go, I suppose. Charity is asking, was the series started before? That's good. It was started after. So yeah. So I feel like there's some like kind of trope story arc influences going on. For those of you who don't know, I've been on a like binge of Asian dramas for a while, which I've now kind of settled into K-dramas. Although I still watch quite a bit of Thai stuff. But and the interesting thing about, interesting from a writer perspective is the different story structures that are being used. Although I will say K-dramas owe quite a bit to like Western suspense thrillers. They're using a lot of the techniques of something like 24. So, but Chinese like historicals and stuff are often 4-act structure, which is very kind of interesting to examine. And of course have different mythological and sort of different narrative beats. It kind of ties into my like heroine's journey, and then the hero's journey as part of the heroine's journey, and me exploring those two narratives and just being like, well, those are very Western, and they definitely come from sort of the classical Mediterranean, and that's where my background is. Some Islamic and stuff like that, but mostly the kind of Fertile Crescent in the Mediterranean world is where my original historical studies come from. So I don't know that much about Asian world, Asian narratives, or African narratives, and so I just started poking around, and in the part of that poking around, I started to explore K-dramas, and then like as a natural side effect of K-dramas, YouTube just starts serving you up K-pop, and then I was like, well, this is fascinating, and like the beauty standards and the fact that they're called idols, like, come on, this stuff writes itself. So I'm very interested in both K-pop because it's kind of fun and boppy, and that's my musical taste, but also the fandom around K-pop and the idea of how fandoms can be politicized or not, the ideas of sassig or like super obsessive fans, which have always somewhat terrified me in connection with celebrity. But also like the fandoms mobilizing for causes, and it's a very kind of interesting universe from a older person anthropological perspective. Have I read Empress Dowager by Zhong Chang? Amazing. Oh, the leader of China during the Victorian era. I have not. I read some. Yeah, I have not, but it sounds fascinating. Another question from Simon: what technology do you prefer? I don't like magic. That's not sort of really true. I do like fantasy, but what I like is a very strongly point of viewed magical system. Like I'm like a magic that is really rooted in something. The example I often give is the Wizard of Earthsea. So there are many of us who, like, I was talking with somebody recently. If you're like generation, the Wizard of Earthsea is like one of those early stories that we got rather than Harry Potter, and it has a really interesting magical system that is names and the true names of things, which sounds kind of pat now, but was quite exciting and unique at the time, at least for me when I was a child first reading those. So I like fantasy and I don't mind a magical system, but I like a magical system that really is rooted in something materialistic or conceptual. I like a conceptual, interestingly conceptual magical system. I like to see, because I'm an archaeologist, I like to see how the magical system informs not just the society, but like the structures of that society. A classic example of that is you have a star-shaped barbican or defensive wall system if you have projectiles. So the things are going to change if you have wizards who can hurl fireballs. And so I like a kind of organic society structure that the magical system has impacted in notable ways that it would actually impact human society. So I don't like it if the magic system is sort of existing time or place without thought behind how that magic affects reality and reactions to that reality. So the kinds of, and then on the other hand, I also like me style fiction. So I like happy endings. I like a I like good representation, specifically for queer characters, but other kinds of representation or not. And so, like, when I'm fantasy, I also want all of those. I don't like epic waffling fantasy. I don't need to spend a whole chapter on a feast. That's not me. I read Tolkien. I think that's enough for one lifetime. So, it's my taste. More power to you if you have the more. There's a question, sorry. That was a fantasy question. Robin asks, will we ever get a Claw and Courtship about Sidheg? How do you know it's Claw and Courtship? This is I've talked about Sidheg before. Is she Claw and Courtship? Is she Supernatural Society? Or is she Delightfully Deadly? Or is she the book that is all three? Into all three, right? The idea behind the different novella lines is that Claw and Courtship is a werewolf and a human pairing. So Sidheg would fit that. And then the idea behind the Delightfully Deadly books is they are what happened at fishing school. Sidheg would fit that. And then the idea behind the Supernatural Society books is that those are the really, really queer ones, and Sidheg would fit that. So, I just haven't. I don't know where she would go, but I'm not averse to writing that one. That one would just be really complicated because Sidheg my books, obviously, because to write her, I don't even know which line it's into. And that's honestly, it just seems like a terribly huge amount of work. I have to reread my own stuff, which I hate doing. I haven't written it. The Immersive Heroine's Journey class next month. Is this I plan to do more of future? Do I enjoy teaching, or is it more about bringing the concepts to more people? That's a loaded question. So the Heroine's Journey, look, I have them all close, but not exactly within reach. A 4-hour seminar broken up into teaching session, discussion, teaching session, discussion, teaching session, discussion, for writing the other course. And that's happening on September 11th. So if you're interested, you can go register for that. There's scholarships and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't do that kind of teaching very often, and I certainly don't do it online, although I can and I have. I have a deck. It's just more that when I do a presentation, I like to do it like old school lecturer style, because that's what I used to do as a professor, right? I like to pace around. I like to see the audience. I like to see their interactions. If I do seminars, I prefer to do them in person. But when I do seminars in person, they tend to be short. Like they tend to be for writers groups or whatever, so only like an hour or something. So the idea behind something like this is that we can really get into it, and it's really long, and I can really give people individual attention and, you know, answer specific questions about the topic. So that's the immersive aspect. And I do like that a lot. My favorite thing when I was a professor was discussion groups. I've always loved discussion groups best. So I like it. And yes, I like teaching. But, you know, people asked me this early on and about this book when I wrote it, and the thing I don't want to do is to have a weird kind of ownership of this, like it's my narrative to teach or something. That I don't like that idea. So I wrote this book because everybody knew about the hero's journey and nobody knew about the heroine's journey, and that was mostly my reason. And so at conventions, people would ask me about the heroine's journey, and I would try to explain it, but it needs a book to explain, really, if you don't have any foundation in classical mythology in particular. And so I finally just wrote the book. So it basically, there was a hole in the market, and I was like, someone's got to do this, and I've been waiting for somebody to do it, and nobody did. But what I was really hoping is that other people would pick it up and run with it. So, you know, other people are already teaching courses. That's fine with me. I don't feel proprietary. I just want the information to get out there. You can read the book if you want to find out about it. That's why I wrote the book. But Tempest is a friend of a friend, and specifically, and you know, a couple people had recommended the book to her and specifically asked me to do this for her, for Writing the Other. And I believe in the work that the Writing the Other kind of platform is doing and giving voices, and so I kind of want to support them. So that's one of the many reasons I'm doing it. But I'm not against offering this course. I mean, I built the deck. So for those who don't know, this book started out as a presentation, and then I kept giving the presentation, and people just loved the presentation and would come up to me afterwards and be like, we would like to know more. We would like the book still, even after 4 hours. And so I basically used the presentation as a sort of template for the book, and then 6 months of writing later, I finally had an actual book out of it. But yeah, so does that kind of answer the question, Charity? Oh, well, to bring to more people, I'm hoping the book does most of the legwork in bringing the concept to more people. I'm not against giving a presentation or smaller versions of it at conventions and stuff like that. I'll probably do that, although that's very conditional on conventions being equipped to do this kind of presentation. I'm not going to do it without the tech in place to give the deck and stuff. I don't feel the need to do that. I don't do workshops, so that's probably never going to be part of it. But I'm not against that, but I don't want it to be the thing I do. I don't want to be like the known proponent and the one advocate for this. That's not why I wrote the book. I don't foresee that as something that I want to do. I want to write fiction. That's what I want to do more than anything, is just keep writing fiction. I love writing fiction, and that's what I want to do. This was just a desperate, like, this has to exist. This was sort of me paying back the zeitgeist or something. I don't know. I mean, all of my stories, the fiction that you all love and made my money, is by Heroine's Journey, and I guess I kind of felt like I owed the universe understanding of that narrative. but I don't necessarily feel like I want to become a teacher of that narrative regularly as my life's work or something. I don't know. That's a weird way of putting it, but I'm not against it, but I don't want to be defined by it, I guess, is what I would say. I do like teaching, though, especially something that I like and am passionate about. So, and specifically, and more importantly, given my background, something that people want to take and people are in the audience because they wish to learn about it. That's when teaching is best, as opposed to a bunch of students who kind of don't really want to be there and are already tired of you. For signing, we have about 10 more minutes. If anybody has any last people recommending books and having discussions in the comments, what's happening. I answered everybody's question. Good. And Robin has one more question. Thank you, Robin. Robin has gotten the book about Inanna. Any other books we recommend read for reference for the Heroine's Journey talk? I have linked on the book page off of my website is the resources page for it. So, and there are some online resources like Harvard, I think, has Gregory Nagy's translation just available online. So you can go read that, the Demeter myth. If you want to, and none of the myth stuff is very long because it's just the translation that we have, and we don't have huge blocks of text from Homer, and people like Homer. So yeah, there's a resources page, so you can get to it off of the books page, but it's pretty clearly there, and so there's some online resources you can read if you want to read the myths I talk about. So for those of you who haven't read this, I cover 3 myths as the foundation, just, much in the way that Campbell used Gilgamesh, I use Inanna or Ishtar, Demeter, and Isis as 3 goddess myths for the foundations of the heroine's journey. And what was I saying? I retell them just because I don't want to be plagiarizing anybody, even long dead Budge or other translators. So I retell them in very me-ish type manner. And then you can understand what they're, because the point is to understand the beats of the narrative, not to actually specifically read the translation. But I do provide sources so you can go read the translations if you want to. And if you'd like to do that before the course, you should feel free to do so. I think Inanna is the only one that is I think the other 2 are both available online. Yeah. So you should be able to get them there. With similar characters. Stacy wants to know, have I 5th gender? Am I writing any more 5th gender? So I have the idea for a second book in that series. It would be another kind of mystery, and it would sort of stand alone, but it would still be Triss and Dre as the main characters. But right now I have no plans to write it immediately because I'm writing something else, but what I am writing elsewise is in the same sci-fi universe. It's in the Tinkered Stars, which is that sci-fi universe. So there's and I'm writing a 3-book series that's in that universe. Then I decided if I was going to write a series, I would just sit down and write the whole series, because if you want a series from me, which you seem to want series from me, then the best way for me emotionally as an author to do so is to just write them back to back. That seems to work best for me. That's how I wrote all of the Parasol Protectorate series. And the series that is inspiring me right now is this alien entertainment in space series. So that one is what I'm currently writing, and that is in the Tinkered Stars universe, but it does not have the same characters that are in 5th gender. Also Crud Rat, which is an old book of mine, I'll probably re-release. That's also in the Tinkered Stars universe. And then YN Axon, which is a techno fantasy, is tangential to that universe, but they are all sci-fi. So apparently I'm having a sci-fi moment. But you know me, I get around, I'll write something else. Suddenly I'll, read something set in a historical time period and have to write something set in that time period. So it's how I work. But right now, yes, there will be a lot more sci-fi for you, Stacey. Don't worry about it. And if you like this, the main character for the alien entertainment that I'm writing is probably one of my most favorite characters. He's unbelievably lovable. I just adore him. So I think you will too. So, and that I think brings us nicely towards the end. So I'm going to say ta-ta to you all. And I hope you have a lovely weekend. I'm sorry about the technical lag. I will try to have this fixed next time I do a live. Unfortunately, with these Facebook Lives, it's a matter of trying something new each time until we figure out the system that works almost as good as the old system did, and then they'll change it on us again. But thank you for your patience, and have lovely weekends, and I'll see you all in a month or so.